The Love, Life, and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. If you know what to do, but can't figure out why you're just not doing it, this is the right podcast for you. I'm your host, Advanced Certified Weight and Life Coach, Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to think and eat like a normal eater, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Hey, welcome to episode 69. Happy 2025. I hope you had a safe and enjoyable new year. I'm back to talk to you about setting integrative weight goals for 2025. In the last episode, hopefully you listened. You went through a review of 2024 with me, and you took a closer look at patterns that you went through in the past year and how life circumstances and your approach to your goals may have affected, the results that you got in those. And so I asked you for homework in the last episode to make some notes about the wins from last year and the things that you're still trying to work out so that you can sort of bring that sensibility into goal setting, at least for your weight in 2025, knowing what you know about your yearly fluctuations as you go throughout your year, at least for last year. Now, we don't know what 2025 brings, of course, but goal setting really is not a process where we expect to perfectly ever adhere to what we set out to do. The example I usually give with my clients is like when you see mountain climbers climbing the mountain, they throw the grappling hook all the way up to the top, or they set it at the top. And they don't focus excessively on getting to the grappling hook, right? They're on the side of the mountain. They're looking very carefully and focusing on what's their next grip hold or foothold that they can take to get them a little bit higher toward that grappling hook. Not exactly in a linear line, right? You might have to go to the left, you might have to go to the right in order to get there in a safe way and in a way that reflects what you're able to do. And goal setting for your weight is the same. What I want to interrupt and introduce here in goal setting for 2025 is what I call an integrative approach for it. And what I mean by that is to look a little bit closer at weight loss in the traditional way and what that creates for us if we've been at it for a long time. Losing weight traditionally has only just meant changing a number on the scale. And on a dumb scale, a scale that only tells you your body mass relationship to gravity in any one moment. And those kind of dumb traditional scales only don't tell you anything about what it is that you're measuring. It doesn't tell you how much of what you're measuring is water, fat, muscle, or bone. But we're in this new age now where we have all of this technology that helps us to take a closer look underneath the hood of our bodies so that we can actually have an intelligent conversation with ourselves and our engage with our goals in a way that allows us to really evaluate what it is that we're made of. How much muscle do we have? How much fat do we have? How much water weight? How much bone weight? And how do these things affect more generally our sense of overall health, especially as we age? So, as a coach, I just decided I wasn't going to be somebody who just taught fat loss without consideration of these other factors of the composition of your body. Because the traditional way of losing weight usually only means decreasing calories. And hopefully, you've also evolved past even thinking that exercise helps you lose weight. It doesn't. So if you do not resistance train and eat adequate protein as you age in your late 30s and beyond, then if you are in a caloric deficit trying to lose weight, you can lose up to 25% of each pound of weight that you lose can be your muscle, your skeletal muscle. So if you play this out pound after pound after pound, losing weight without a holistic or integrative approach about what we're doing can leave us at goal weight weaker and also sets us up for regain, because if you've lost a significant amount of muscle mass, then you are have set yourself up to be unable to eat the amount of calories that you might be able to eat had you saved your muscle or retained your muscle and had an intention to do that. And look, we don't want to be older women without any muscle tone who can hardly eat anything, right? You want to be able to enjoy your food and have a body full of mitochondria, which are the engines, your cellular engines that are powerful and burning calories at a nice rate, right? You want to be a machine that is powerful and that requires a decent amount of fuel. We don't want to only eat toast and tea like our grandmothers did, right? And they had absolutely no muscle tone. There is so much emerging research, and I do encourage you to get on the internet and look at some of these new studies that they've done that show having muscle on your body for women is associated with so many positive health outcomes beyond just being able to, lift heavy things and go upstairs and climb ladders, do gardening, lift bags of mulch. That's a big thing for me. That's kind of my standard. I want to easily lift a bag of mulch without my back hurting or feeling like it's too heavy for me. I want to be able to pile a bunch of them in my wheelbarrow and feel like I can do it. So this really is like a holistic idea. It's not just, myopically looking at, I want to lose weight, but like, what do you want your body to be made of? What lifestyle do you want at the end of your weight loss? So let's take a closer look at what breaks down muscle. Your skeletal muscle starts to decrease for women in your late 30s and continues year after year, with the most significant decrease happening around menopause because of the hormonal changes, particularly the drop in estrogen. And this is called sarcopenia. So this will happen without you kind of opposing that natural process from happening. Muscle mass is also decreased by inactivity, meaning particularly lack of strength training in your movement, your regular movement. Lack of protein, adequate protein in your diet will also waste your muscle. Eating in a caloric deficit will waste your muscle, and lack of sleep. So if you're over 50, which most of my clients and my listeners are, and you've been trying to get to goal weight for many years or even decades, always trying to be in that caloric deficit, and you have not been thinking much about your protein intake, or you don't even know how much you've been taking in, or lifting weights or doing anything to sort of put your muscles regularly under stress and tension, then you are somebody I'm really talking to today. So if this is you, 2025 is a great year for you to take a much closer look at your current body composition, the data around that, so that you can reach your weight goals in a way that sets you up for long-term better health. Just a quick disclaimer, I am a weight coach and I'm offering you general advice about what's worked for me and my clients. This is not nutritional advice. This is not medical advice, but I do hope that you take these ideas about your weight goals and you take them to your medical professionals and you discuss your goals with them. That's what I'm really hoping that you do. It is a partnership. And I think so many medical professionals are really much more tuned into weight, like an integrative approach to weight loss, where you are retaining your muscle while you're also losing fat. And they can really be excellent partners with you in your weight goals. So, if, like most all of my clients, fat loss is your primary goal, then you're going to want to do some things to minimize the amount of muscle that you lose. We know that if you're losing weight, that's catabolic, meaning you're going to always lose some muscle as you lose fat. And that is just part of how our bodies work. How do we do that? We do that by eating in a slight caloric deficit. But we also know that we can minimize the muscle loss that you have while you lose fat. And we can minimize it from as much as 25% if you're not doing any like interventions. We can minimize it to 8 to 10%. That's the goal. You want to restrict your muscle loss as you lose fat you want to keep it to 8 to 10% if you can. But you got to be looking at your numbers, and you got to be getting on a scale that can give you that information, because otherwise you're just guessing if you're using one of those dumb scales. So you've got to be providing your body with adequate protein, and you've got to be strength training to be able to do that. Are you rolling your eyes when I say that? Well, you know, we're no different than the astronauts that go into space and they're in a lack of gravity on their bodies. What happens? They lose their muscle. Human bodies will adapt to triggers. If you have not been giving those triggers to your body tension and pull on your skeletal muscles, then they will waste away. This is the natural adaptations of the body are designed to not hold on to anything that's not being used. So this is just like one of these hard hat realities that I talk to you straight about. Yeah, I mean, the way I teach fat loss is I don't really count macros. I don't do that. Some people do that and they love it. For most of my clients, that triggers a lot of diet mentality. And so I figured out a way to help you learn intuitively how to eat in a slight caloric deficit without counting macros, without counting calories. You do this by interoception. We do this by noticing, really developing a language and translating the cues of your body to know when you are at 70% full. And that equates with a slight caloric deficit. Eating to 80% full equates with the concept of hara-hachi-bu, which is associated with maintaining weight. And eating above 80% full when you eat is associated with being in a caloric surplus. So, although I do it in a way that helps you sense what's enough based on your goals, it doesn't mean that it's easy. And guess what? Retaining your muscles isn't going to be easy either. Like what I promise you is I can help you reach your fat loss goals in a way that doesn't feel restrictive, but that's different than it being easy, right? These things aren't easy. If they were easy, everyone would have muscle and have lost all their fat. And, I think that this is the privilege of a lifetime, is to figure out how to do this for yourself. What a gift. And yeah, it's hard, but yeah, guess what? Your brain likes to do hard things. There are tremendous rewards associated with it. And I just invite you to go on this journey in 2025. So this is the ideal way to lose fat. Weight goal setting in an integrative way is taking into consideration how your lifestyle habits will affect your entire mind and body. At the end, when you've hit your goal, it means for women over 40, prioritizing fat loss while also retaining or even building lean muscle as much as possible. So we need to know our body composition data by using a smart body composition scale if you're going to have goals around integrative weight goals, changing your body fat, retaining, or even gaining muscle. So this is what I mean. rather than just picking a number based on what you used to weigh or what someone else weighs that you think looks good. What I'm suggesting here today is that you get on an InBody composition scale to see where your current composition is, and then you set goals from there. This is an individualized process, and it depends on where you're at with your muscle mass and your current skeletal muscle mass. So you can find locations where you can get on an InBody by going to, ready? You're going to write this down. It's https:// inbodyusa.com/support/nearest testing location. You could probably just go to Google and say InBody scale testing locations near me. That's probably easier. But I wanted to give you the full URL in case you wanted to go right there. And you'll find, you might be surprised, a lot of my clients, even when they live in the Midwest where it's relatively sparse population, there are InBody locations close enough that they could go once a month. And it really, it doesn't matter if you don't have an InBody near you or you can't get one. You just want to use something that will give you skeletal muscle mass and body fat in pounds. And you want to be able to get on that and get your data once a month. So if you're going to have integrative weight goals, you're going to want to commit to getting on that scale once a month so that you can track and get a fast feedback loop about what's working and what isn't working so you can make micro adjustments as you go through your year. I have an at-home InBody. It's called a H2O. I believe you can get one for about $400 or so. That was a gift for one of the holidays from my husband. It's a nice gift. And I use it in between when I go to my doctor's office and I get on the professional one. So you've got to know your numbers. Once you know your numbers, you'll be able to see right away how each section of your body is composed of fat and muscle and a bunch of other things. And from here, once I have that data from my client, I get to work with them to set individualized goals. And like I said before, for most of my clients, when we look at that readout from InBody, the priority is to lose fat and then to retain or even build skeletal muscle mass. And here's where the naysayers come in. You might have heard this before. You can't do both. You can't build muscle and lose fat at the same time. It depends on the context with this. Most of the time, that advice that you can't do both is coming from bodybuilders who are usually men who have been strength training for years. And their body fat is either at optimal or even below optimal. My audience is very different. Most of my audience is in the overweight, obese, or morbidly obese classification in their doctor's office. They have a lot of fat to lose and they have not been weightlifting. Or if they do, it's not intense. I would say I do have some clients who are really into movement and strength training. And so I would approach that a little bit differently, but I can work with that. And we have slightly different goals, slightly different, not terribly different than what I'm going to tell you here. So, and here's why my clients can do both. Because people who are new to strength training or they've just become deconditioned, they haven't done it in a long time, you can recomposition, which means in this case, lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. Because when you're new to strength training, your muscles are like hyper responsive to the muscle building effects of strength training. And you have a window to do this of about 6 months to a year. So at the new year here, I'm really encouraging you to start weight training. Take advantage of your newbie window to recomposition pretty easily and have awesome gains. The general conclusion from my research is that women in their first year of strength training, if they're committing to adequate intensity and 3 times a week, they can expect to gain about 8 to 10, maybe 12 pounds of muscle. And for men, that's usually about twice as much. So again, your window for doing both losing fat and building muscle is about 6 months to 1 year. And after a year or so of this, like your muscle gains will become much slower, but it doesn't mean that it stops. It just means you usually need to just adjust your expectations about the rate at which you're able to build muscle while you lose fat. Okay. So you're going to get your data. You're going to look at where you fall in fat mass pounds and skeletal muscle mass in pounds. And you're going to set some goals. So, for example, there's a lot of options with this because remember, this is all individual. So, I'm just going to give you a sampling of some of the goals that I like to kind of start with, or at least talk to my clients about. So, the first goal might be and some of these ideas are from Dr. Ali Novitsky. She's a doctor in obesity medicine, and I think she has good advice on this that I use it too with my clients. So the first one would be to get your body fat mass in pounds to be less than your skeletal muscle mass in pounds. This is like a motivating goal. If you know the difference between the two, right? To get your fat mass below what your muscle mass is. This is good for somebody who's retained a nice amount of their muscle mass, right? Somebody who really is very low in muscle mass, this might not be a good goal for you. So that's one version. A second version would be to increase your skeletal muscle mass in pounds to be a minimum of 60 pounds. And this is usually if you're under 200 pounds in weight. Can be a little bit more if you're a man or you weigh more. Okay. The other thing that you can do is look at your waist circumference and try to get that lower. Being 32 inches or less is associated with very positive cardiovascular health outcomes. So you could work there. Or you could also look at your waist to hip ratio. You can look that up on Google and work on that. Of course, as you lose fat, hopefully your waist measurement will start to come down. So that's a nice way to track different goals in terms of like where you're at. If you're looking at your muscle mass in pounds and you're like nowhere near 60 pounds of skeletal muscle mass, you might want to change your primary goal to be maintaining your weight or even slightly gaining because you're working on that beginner window of maximizing your muscle mass. Now, why would somebody want to do this? Well, it's going to set you up. If you increase your muscle mass, your measurements are going to change, probably in a way that you really like to see. And so this is a different way of changing your body composition, and your clothes might feel better the more muscle you have. And your percentages of fat and muscle will sort of track in the right direction if you just look at increasing muscle mass. You're going to have nice endorphins. You're going to be setting yourself up for, habits of strength training that you can set yourself up with for hopefully the rest of your life. So this is a worthy goal too, just as much as just chasing weight loss in sort of like a linear way. It's so much more nuanced about like how we can get where we want to go. So let's say, you don't have anywhere near 60 pounds of skeletal muscle mass. Maybe for this first 6 months, you just say, you know what, I'm going to work on gaining muscle mass. And, for that, we would have slightly different goals. So let me go over what the difference is between the two. So the first one would be to lose fat and minimize or spare your lean muscle mass. So how do I do that in my coaching? Well, this is a how of how you'll implement your goal. So this will be in the day-to-day of the doing in order for you to make progress toward that grappling hook, which is your weight goal. Number 1, you'll eat when you're hungry and you'll stop at 75% full, which means you're eating in a slight caloric deficit most of the time. You're going to restrain your overeats to the max number. That means eating beyond 75% full, right? And restricting the number of times you do that to a number that still allows you to lose weight. So you should know what your magic number is for your number of overeats. Just go back in my podcast to hear more about how we do this. Then in order to spare your muscle, you're going to add to your how is to prioritize protein. Most of us need to be at least eating 70 to 100 grams of protein daily just to adequately spare our muscle when we're strength training. And then, of course, number 4 is to strength train 3 times a week. And you need to be doing it adequate intensity where you're really challenging your muscles to provoke the muscles to get stronger. That's what we're after. And you got to do it often enough that the strength gains that you're getting from your strength workouts are not only lasting, but that it's increasing over time. Okay, so that's the general how of how to lose fat and spare your lean muscle, retain as much as possible by keeping the losses to 8-10% rather than 25%. Okay, the other one, if you're noticing, you know what, my biggest goal based on my InBody data is to start increasing my muscle mass because I have less than I thought. And that's going to be priority. Then you would just slightly change what I just went over. So instead of stopping at 75% full, you might eat a little bit more. If fat loss was primary and you were eating to 70%, you might go to 75, 80%. If your primary goal is to gain muscle. So you're going to eat slightly more. The other thing you're going to do is, yes, you're still going to wait for hunger for your meals, but you're going to make exceptions for replenishing your protein right before or after you do your strength training, because your body needs that raw material to spare that muscle. So remember, when you strength train, you micro tear the muscle. That's why you get sore. And your body needs that raw building block of amino acids that you get from eating protein to strengthen the muscle and rebuild it. So you have to give adequate protein. And if your workout is hard and it's more than 20 minutes, you need to be providing that raw material for your muscles. Okay. Number 3, you're still going to follow your max overeats per week to maintain your weight. So maybe you have a few, 1 or 2 more overeats because you're not going for primary fat loss. You're going for primary is building your muscle, and your body just needs more fuel to do that. And number 4, you might want to eat a little bit more protein than you ate when fat loss was primary. If your primary goal is to build muscle, then you might want to eat more protein than you've been even eating at 70 to 100 grams. And you can talk to a nutritionist about this to find out what exactly is right for you. Okay. You're going to increase your resistance. You could do it even more than 3 times per week, or you could do more intense sessions and or longer durations. If you switch from I want to lose fat primarily to I want to build my muscle. Okay. So there's many ways for you to go about your weight goal for 2025. I hope that you get on a smart scale, take a look at your numbers, especially those of you who are on GLP-1 medications, right? We know that there can be some muscle loss associated with being on those medications. And for anybody who's late 30s or over 40 and hasn't been paying attention to their protein intake and their resistance training or movement that stresses your muscles to keep you strong. And I hope that you use the scale data in a smart way and that you don't think just because you want to spare your muscle or even build it as you reach your weight goals that you have to count macros or you have to count your calories or weigh your food. I truly believe that you can keep the integrative weight loss fundamentals in place even as you refine a more nuanced idea of your weight goal to include leaving you with adequate muscle for life. Okay. It's all about feeling good long term and really thinking about how you're affecting your body holistically. If you want to weigh and measure your food and do your macros and that feels really good to you, I think you should do it. But if you're like me and many of my clients who, still feel at the effect of diet mentality and very triggered for this idea of like being very precise with your food and parceling out, doling out food to yourself through weighing and measuring your food, I think that you can have the best of both worlds. And I'm always really encouraging my clients to find a way to do that. I think that you can create whatever you want in your life as long as you are focused, paying attention, using data, and really testing your results week after week and month after month. I think it's really fun to do that and to think about being stronger in 2025, enjoying the life that you're creating with the goals and the habits that you set up to get there. Okay. I hope it's been informative. If you're interested in working with me, sign up for the list. Go to hbeardsley.com/subscribe. Get on the list. Your first email will tell you exactly how to learn more about working with me in 2025. And that's it for now. I'll see you next time. Stay focused and so long. Hey, if this episode resonated for you, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's hbeardsley.com/subscribe and get on the list. You'll get a free gift, periodic coaching, plus advance notice of in-person events and workshops.